White-tailed deer are widely known in America. Most everyone has seen one in their lifetime. They're the most sought-after game animal in North America, mostly due to the availability of their species and also due to the trophy class antlers that the bucks wear on top of their heads. In this speech, I'm going to be telling you guys about how to measure the rack of a white-tailed buck. After processing the deer, the first thing you have to decide is what you're going to do with it. Some people will cut the antlers off to a skull mount, or to a skull plate like this, mount on a plate, a plaque, and hang on the wall. This one is actually cut to be mounted onto the full head shoulder mount onto a wall. Or another version of displaying is a European mount, which is the full skull that is bleached white with the antlers on top of their head. After you decide that, it's time to prepare the rack for whether it be mounted or displayed. As you have to clean all the flesh and meat off of it to make sure it doesn't stink. And when doing so, if you plan on scoring it, you have to be careful not to break the skull plate. If the skull plate breaks, which there's actually a rigid line that runs in the skull, kind of looks like a jigsaw puzzle. If those break, the rack will then no longer be able to count for any of the trophy class animal measurements. There's a 60-day drying period after you harvest an animal that you're going to have officially scored. So once the deer is processed, shot, it has to sit for 60 days before you can contact an official scorer and have that measurement count as its official score. Tools for measuring a deer, so obviously you have to have its rack. Next would be either like tailor's tape, soft tape that you can measure around the antlers. I like to use a wire, and you can, it's somewhat stiff to where it can form around the antlers. These wire here has clips on it to where once you measure an area, then you can clamp it, because then you have to have a measuring tool, whether it be a tape measure, a ruler, or a tailor's tape, where you can lay it down and actually get that measurement for that part of the rack. Another part that you have to have is the score sheet. You can obtain these from popeandyoung.org or boonandcrockett.org, and they both have a PDF file that you can print off. This one here is from Pope and Young Club. Pope and Young Club is for archery, and Boone and Crockett are for firearms deer, or archery also. And they're pretty much the same. These two PDFs are just a little bit different. This one looks like it's been updated, this one hasn't. There's two categories in white-tailed deer. Typical, which this buck falls in, is the rack is symmetrical and doesn't have very many abnormal points. A point is classified as a projection that is 1 inch or longer to be counted. So like this deer would have an abnormal point here, but it is not 1 inch, so it doesn't count against this rack. And the second category is non-typical, which is the rack has to have 15 inches of abnormal points to classify it as non-typical. To start the process of measuring, having a sheet is obviously going to help you. First, there's a part on the sheet for the number of points on the right antler. So this one would have 5 on the right, 5 on the left. You measure the tip-to-tip spread, which is this tip to this tip in the front. Measure that and record it down into the tip-to-tip spread, which is 10 7/8 on this deer. Then you get the inside spread of the main beam, which is the inside at its longest point. That's an adjacent line. And on this deer, it was 15 2/8. Those measurements there are just for recording purposes to help identify the deer. Those do not add into the final score. The first part that would add into the final is the greatest spread, which can be to the outside of the rack. This here, here. Once you get that measurement, get it on there. This one is 17 6/8. Or I was wrong on that. Greatest spread is is 17 6/8. That one doesn't count. The inside spread is the one that is recorded. That's 15 2/8 on this one. Then you go on to the length of the main beam, which is measured from the outside of the center of the burr, which is the fat part that meets the skull. You layer wire there, follow it around the outside. One tip, they say, is to follow the bloodline, which is a vein that was there whenever the rack was still in velvet, when it was growing. You follow that all the way around until you get to your tip. Lay it out, measure it. Length of main beam on this one is 21 3/8. The other one is 20 3/8. Once you get your main beam, you start with the first tine. Tine are each point. These are called, they're tines. They start as G1 is your first point, also known as an eye guard on a whitetail. That's your G1. It goes to G2, G3, G4, and so on. It has more points. Once you measure those, one tip is to take a piece of paper, and on the tine, if you lay the paper from the main beam, where the top of the main beam is, you lay it here and draw a line right there, like just some pencils that'll come off. And then you'll measure with your wire from that line to the tip, and that'll help you get a straighter line for the score. This deer, its first tine is on this side is 1 2/8, so that is why it counts. It is 2/8 of an inch over the inch requirement for a tine to be measured. This side is 1 2/8, 6 5/8, 8 4/8, 4 7/8. And that's each one's measured from the top of the main beam. This side, you go from 4 2/8, 8 1/8, 7 4/8, and 2 6/8. You record that into their columns on the sheet here. That way then you can subtract across to get the difference of these points. After you measure each tine, you go to circumference measurements. First circumference measurement is between the burr and the first point in the center area. For this, you're going to wrap your wire or measure around, get your good point, lay it down, and measure it there. On this deer, both of the first two measurements are 4 2/8, so they are symmetrical. That both are the same measurement. Then the next one is between the G1 and G2. Lay it up there, get your round, lay it down, measure it. Both of these for the second measurement are 3 6/8. Then you go between your G2 and G3, measure those. The right antler on this one is 3 4/8. The left antler is 3 3/8. So there's an 1/8 inch of difference there, and that'll come over to your column 4. The last circumference measurement on this one is between the G3 and G4. If a deer is an 8 point, it will be between the G3 and the in the center. So if it's an 8 point, you still get a fourth measurement, but it'll always be between the G3 and the tip of the antler. Anything over an 8 point, 10, 12, it can have 20 points. You still only get 4 circumference measurements. On this deer, the right antler is 3 4/8, and the left antler is 3 1/8. So there's 4/8 difference there. So now that you got all your measurements tallied into your sheet, you add column 2 up. This one is 57 5/8. Left antler, you measure those up, 57 3/8. After you came over and made all your differences here, you drop that down, add them up. There's 9 2/8 difference from the right to left antler. You drop your spread credit down, 5 2/8, or 15 2/8 was the spread credit. And they go into this column here. Column 1, spread credit is 15 2/8. Column 2, 57 5/8. Column 3, 57 3/8. And then you add that up, the subtotal is 130 2/8. This is what is called a gross measurement. The gross score means it's a total of the rack before deductions. most people, this is what they go off of when they're talking about a deer. If they say a deer scores this, 130 and 2/8 is their gross score. To get the net score, which is for a, if you want to try to get into a record book, we'll go off the net. You take the column 4, which is your deductions, subtract it off, and get a final score of 121 and 0/8 for this deer. Now you've measured them, what to do with your measurements, or what do you have? Once you have your measurement, it's a good reference tool when you're talking in conversation, about deer size of your area, deer that you killed. Another thing to look at is if you take a deer with archery equipment, if it scores a typical deer of 125 or a non-typical deer scores 155, those qualify to be put into the Pope and Young Club book. Those are the low scores. Those are not all time to stay in, but they can be listed each year as a Pope and Young class buck. If you take it with a firearm, if it scores typical 160 inches or non-typical 185 inches, that would qualify for the Boone and Crockett record book. After scoring, once you decide what you want to do, it's just it's a measurement of keeping the track of the size of white-tailed deer. All animals, game animals, can be measured. Bears by their skull, elk by their antlers, so forth. The head of a typical white-tailed buck makes a very handsome trophy, particularly if the beam and points are symmetrical. That was Leonard Lee Rue II who said that, and its beauty is in the eye of the hunter. If you shoot a deer like this and you want to put it on your wall, that it's nice. It's all up to you. Or if you are happy with shooting and it's legal, a fork horn, and that's what you like, and you want to display it, it's totally up to you. And hopefully, at the end of this speech, you guys will get a better understanding of how to score deer. That way, you will know if you harvest a deer, the size and caliber of that buck. Thank you for your time.